Hello there, people of the internet. I'm currently out here at the old range, and I figured I'd do some filming while I was here, because hey, opportunity comes knocking. Today we're going to talk about different things that you can do to get your rifle to essentially have less recoil. I get a couple of questions about this, and I don't think I've made a video on it, so we're gonna go ahead, bite the bullet, and make a video on it. So the first most obvious thing that you can do is shoot a less powerful round inside of your rifle. For example, this is 8mm Mauser, and this is 223. As you can see, the 223 is quite a deal smaller, so it's going to be quite a deal less powerful. This is a 55 grain bullet, and it's going to travel about, from a full-length barrel, maybe about 3,000 feet per second. This particular toll ammo stuff. Well, this right here, this 8mm Mauser round, this is like a 198 grain bullet, so almost 200 grains, and it's going to travel at like 2,600 or so feet per second, depending on barrel length and things like that. And this particular stuff, I think, is Yugoslavian, so 2,600 feet per second sounds about right. That is like 4 times the mass, traveling not that much slower than something like the 223. So yeah, that's quite a bit more powerful. If you have less power inside of your bullet, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction, less powerful bullet means less powerful recoil. Now I realize the nomenclature I'm saying here is a little bit off, but I'm trying to explain it simply so people can understand it. Another big thing that you can do to try to get rid of as much recoil inside your rifle as possible is to have some sort of self-loading firearm. If I have this right here, this is a bolt action system. This particular one, 8mm Mauser, Turkish Mauser, we're going to be shooting it here in a second. This bolt action rifle, the only recoil absorption is essentially inside of your shoulder, versus something like this AR with this 20 round magazine inside of it. Something like this right here actually has like a spring system inside of it that absorbs quite a bit of that recoil, which is one of the reasons why the AR, whether or not we're talking about the AR-15 or the AR-10, both of them tend to recoil significantly less than like a bolt action counterpart, just because of that recoil spring inside of it. That's just the nature of how the system works. The M1 Grand is a really good example of exactly that. The 30-06 is a pretty gosh darn potent cartridge. You put a 30-06 inside of a bolt action rifle, you get quite a bit of recoil. But from the M1 Grand, people are surprised at how light recoiling the M1 Grand actually is, because of that recoil spring inside of it that absorbs a tremendous amount of that recoil. So another big thing that you can do, I've actually got one very poorly attached to this. This rifle has seen better days. I definitely got to reconfigure this one way or another, is get yourself a big old heavy rubber butt pad. This is nice and squishy, and this thing helps out so much with this rifle's recoil. This rifle right here, like, there's a reason why I went out and bought myself a heavy rubber butt pad to throw on it, because 8mm Mauser is a beast of a recoiling rifle. So on top of the butt pad, you can actually do things to the front of your rifle as well. This right here is a flash hider, and it's not really indicative of what we're talking about, but we're discussing things called muzzle brakes now. Essentially what a muzzle brake is as the rifle fires, hot gas that comes out around your muzzle brake will essentially push the rifle forward. With lack of better terminology, I'm trying to explain this simply. That gas pressure will push the rifle forward, so as the recoil pushes the rifle back, the gas pressure pushes it forward ever so slightly, thus lessening the recoil. In this particular case, this flash hider kind of serves as a compensator. You'll notice on the bottom there's no holes, so we have gas that vents out the top and kind of pushes the rifle down to stop the barrel from climbing. So it essentially kind of works like that, except in the opposite direction. Muzzle brakes kind of suck for the people around you because they get hit with a lot of gas pressure, but that is one of the things to help aid with significant recoil. Typically you notice things like that on like higher recoiling guns, like 8mm Mauser. If I were to thread this barrel and throw a muzzle brake on it, I would notice a significant drop in recoil versus something like the AR in 223, which already does not recoil all that much anyway. Now, touching on the power of a bullet, of course the mass of the bullet does matter. To an extent, if you decrease the mass of the bullet, you're going to decrease the recoil. Now that being said, that's not always necessarily the case. There is some stuff out there that's a little hotter than other stuff. Like, this is one of those things that kind of plays by ear, but as a general rule, the lighter weight bullets just tend to recoil a little bit less. If you have a 150 grain 30-06 and a 220 grain 30-06, that 220 grain is just going to recoil more because there is more mass going downrange. However, if you have yourself that 150 grain loaded to a specification that is a little hotter than the commercially available 150 grain 30-06, then you might not notice very much of a difference. But that is one of the things I have noticed. The lighter weight bullets just tend to recoil a little bit less than the heavier stuff. Now that being said, this is 198 grain 8mm Mauser. If I were to break out 150 grain Turkish 8mm Mauser, like that 150 grain or 155 grain, it tends to travel at like 3,000 to 3,200 feet per second, depending on year of production and batch and whatnot. That is some hard recoiling stuff. We have gotten to the point to where the bugs are coming out and they are starting to scream. So if you decrease the velocity of your cartridge just by undercharging it, I do this a lot with my ammunition to conserve brass and conserve powder charge and whatnot, because powder is expensive. I'll typically undercharge by like 10%. This doesn't really decrease that much power downrange, but boy oh boy does it dramatically help with the recoil. Alright, so as a good demonstration, I've got a couple 8mm Mauser rounds loaded into this Mauser. This Mauser being a bolt action system, she's going to have quite a bit of recoil behind her. I do have this big rubber butt pad on it, but she's still going to have quite a bit of recoil behind it. So I'm going to just kind of take aim at my target down there. We'll see if we actually hit it. I think I hit it. I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell because of how overgrown everything down there is. But I'm going to try that again. Why not? We're just going to tell myself that I hit both those shots because I see smoke down there. So that was quite a bit of recoil because that's a full power rifle cartridge in a bolt action system. There's not much to really help with the recoil on that. I got that rubber butt pad, but that's still quite a bit. Now, this right here is a sporterized gun. The wood's been cut off. There's no metal and whatnot that would normally be on one of these Mausers. That has significantly cut down the weight, made it much easier to carry around. But that lack of weight, that translates to more recoil because there's less mass there to absorb the force of that recoil. So the gun just kind of comes back faster. It's kind of like if you, I'm going to use this analogy, I've used it before. If you had a lightweight rock and a heavyweight rock, you throw the lightweight rock, it's easier to throw than the heavyweight rock. So the force of the cartridge going off and the recoil pushing that gun back, it's just able to push it back harder and faster because it's a lighter weight gun. Now, if I have this right here, this is my Radical AR, and this right here, chambered in 223, it's a semi-automatic. This being semi-automatic, it's got a spring system inside of it that's going to absorb a lot of recoil. On top of that, we also have a compensator, which doesn't really help with recoil all that much, but it does make it significantly more controllable. I've actually made videos where I've tested these things out, and it's a far less powerful cartridge, 223/556, depending on what it is that you're shooting. In my particular case, I'm just kind of going for a piece of steel down there. That is significantly more pleasurable to shoot than 8mm Mauser. So if you have a particularly powerful rifle and you want to continue to shoot that rifle, maybe try throwing a butt pad on it if the recoil is too much, or maybe a muzzle brake. That might help you out, or maybe some extra accessories, a larger stock, more wood, more weight, more something like that. That right there will definitely help out with recoil. Or if you have a particularly light shooting gun, then hey, by all means, you can go ahead and enjoy the benefits of not having to have a bunch of weight on your rifle or anything like that. There's kind of like a balance point between rifle power, rifle recoil, and rifle weight. You can't have all of your eggs in one basket there. You got to kind of like go somewhere in the middle. You don't want an overly heavy rifle that is super powerful and has low recoil. You don't want a heavy recoiling rifle that's super powerful but lightweight. And you don't want a rifle that is particularly it doesn't hit hard, depending on what your use is. I guess if you're going after squirrels, then hey, go use a 22 long rifle or something for all I care. But if we're talking about legitimate centerfire rifles, then there is going to be that that discrepancy between the bunch. Maybe I'll make a video talking about that too. You can't have all three. You can't have a lightweight, light recoiling, very powerful rifle, but you can do a lot to kind of make that work. Between the muzzle brake and the butt pad and the proper ammunition choice, there's a lot that you can do. So that's my 2 cents on this particular subject. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you got some ideas. If you got a rifle that is just absolutely kicking your butt. I know I was out at a range in Orlando, I think, where we were checking out a .338 Lapua, and that rifle was tough. That rifle was tough. It had no muzzle brake. It did have a rubber butt pad on it, but it was quite lightweight. That was a tough rifle to shoot. If we were to put a muzzle brake on that, then it would have been significantly easier. That's one of the reasons why people can shoot things like 50 BMGs from the shoulder, because they got that huge muzzle brake on the end, and that muzzle brake kind of pulls the rifle forward so it doesn't go back and destroy your bones. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.